Alright everyone, you probably saw on Mark Dice, or you saw the original video posted by Project Veritas, and it was kind of buried at like, I think 6 minutes 20 seconds or so in the context of like the New York Times debacle where James O'Keefe exposed, and this is provably true, that at least one rogue employee at the New York Times was manipulating the search results, the front page listings for current events on behalf of like the legacy media. Now I think obviously it goes beyond that. New York Times talks about, oh, well, we've got high ethical standards, we have a whole handbook about journalistic ethics. Bullshit. What journalistic ethics? A lot of what you post is provably and demonstrably false. Or it's a lie by omission. The mere way in which you structure the stories that appear on a page, whether it's a web page or a piece of paper, denotes a bias. We can see this all the time. We can see this on Fox the same way we can see it on the New York Times. We can see it at Breitbart the same way we see it on the Atlantic or the Washington Post. It's invariable that this is going to happen. Even the alt media inherently engages in bias because unless you intend to give equal coverage, equal emotional oomph to every story you speak about, like unless I were willing to sit here and cover 20 or 30 different things every fucking day, I would inherently have some bias, some leaning to my content. It happens to be a pro-liberty leaning, generally speaking, but that doesn't mean it's objectively better. It's a subjective opinion that I happen to have based on my understanding of the revolutionary period that formed this country, based on my own deeply held emotional, slightly spiritual beliefs. Some of these people, their main belief is, well, what's going to make us the most money? You know, you could imagine the New York Times lately has adopted a few conservative pundits. They're doing that for a reason, but here's the thing. YouTube is now much more explicitly demoting independent news, and it's not just news, it goes beyond that into the realm of tech and overlaps as well with gaming now. And here's why. YouTube has not decided. It's like the adpocalypse. Early on, when the first few people were hit by the adpocalypse, who came out first to speak against it? People who generally had very strong pro-liberty views and very strong anti-like censorship views in general. And the two are mostly together, but there's a little bit of a wedge where they don't overlap, oddly enough. There are some people who ultimately they don't care about the freedom issue unless it involves the internet. So who spoke about it first? The first wave of people for the first week or so of the adpocalypse talking about it were all political figures. And so people had a skewed perception of who was being targeted by adpocalypse. I realized this at the time because I said, who ultimately is going to talk about this first? Who's going to notice it first? It's going to be people, smaller time political commentators mainly, who are making a decent amount with AdSense, who now aren't, as opposed to people who maybe they weren't making much to begin with because they have a less hardened fan base because they're talking about fucking makeup or something. Doesn't build a hardened fan base, it builds a soft fan base. Political commentary builds a much larger hardened fan base. So I put two and two together, I said, I think we're getting a skewed sample here. And I was right. Now, of course, if you look out there, everyone's been demonetized. Everyone's had a significant proportion of all their content at least partially demonetized. Much of it completely demonetized. They said poo-poo in a video. No, it's not suitable for all advertisers. They said crap in a video. Oh, it's not suitable for any advertisers. They said shit in a video. Oh, yeah, don't even think about it. You know, unless it's Jimmy Kimmel. He can swear all he wants. Jimmy Kimmel can swear, and Cenk can swear, and the people at CNN can accidentally show you live footage of someone getting their head blown off in a police chase. That's okay. That's perfectly acceptable for all advertisers. They can call for genocide in Iraq. I'm sure, you know, had YouTube been around and big and had all the ads and stuff when the Iraq War began, they wouldn't have had a problem with like CNN's 24/7 coverage getting ad after ad after ad showing like explosions and people screaming and fleeing. Would have been fine. But here's the problem. People who provide independent news and similar commentary are, in effect, the ones the most demoted here. And I'll tell you why. Because YouTube has gone beyond just its general AI-based system and is now deliberately demoting material related to top-level sort of current event news stories. So where does that leave somebody like me? Of course, a significant proportion of all the content on my friggin' channel is current events. It's something in the last 24 or so hours has happened that people are talking about that I happen to be interested in at least a little bit. Otherwise, I don't talk about it, hence why I don't upload as many videos as some people who do political analysis. And it's still quite a load of videos, trust me. I just hit video 666, by the way, from this particular webcam earlier today. I was proud about that. It was pretty funny. But a lot of the stuff I cover is current events, which means that I'm competing with people who are being deliberately like stickied to the front page because they happen to be legitimate outlets. And that's the term that YouTube's like diversity or something person there was saying on that tape. They were saying, oh yeah, we're concerned, you know, we want legitimate news on the front page. Legitimate? Oh, really? All those you mean like CNN? The same CNN that told its viewing audience it's illegal to read WikiLeaks, that was a crime. The same MSNBC that said, oh, people should just believe what we tell them to believe, they shouldn't think for themselves. Fox News, oh, I'm sure that the average person who has no problem with the other sites that are being sticky there, they do have a problem with Fox News being on there. Or Breitbart, maybe. Breitbart might be on that list. The Blaze. Yeah, Glenn Beck, real legitimate news source. No, a lot of these, some of these groups have been revealed over the last year as explicitly taking bribes from political campaigns. How in hell are they legitimate outlets when it comes to current events? If they overlap at all with politics, they're certainly not. They're intrinsically going to have a bias. And by the way, how would YouTube specifically know that an independent commentator who had risen up through the ranks to some higher degree, how do you know that that individual is not potentially independent enough to be unbiased, that they are legitimate, that they fact check, that they care about some degree of journalistic standards for the new era of tech-based media? Of course they do. Of course they care. I've met some people, and I've spoken with them to do like commentary, say, oh yeah, there are a lot of stories I skip because ultimately I'm not going to bother covering it if I don't know all the details. I know plenty of people who are perfectly legitimate commentators. They don't need a journalism degree. You don't need to go to school and get a piece of paper to know what you're doing when you're just analyzing anyway. And by the way, most of the coverage that you see of the current events is opinion. It's not primary reporting. The primary reporting is the news van is sitting there and the helicopter's in the air and they're giving you a few shots of what's happening. Oh, there's a shootout going on. There you go. That's the sum and substance of the objective reporting you can do. There's a shooter. Here's his name. Here, he's talking to a negotiator. We don't know anything further, but let's sit here for an hour and speculate before the police tell us what the actual facts are. It is opinion. It is a subjective analysis of what's going on. It is not objective reporting. How is that any more legitimate than any other person speculating on the same thing? How is it any different? An intelligent person's not going to go way out into fringe loony bin land anyway during their analysis because it would be stupid to do so. There might be some people who do that. Yeah, there are clickbaiters on YouTube. You know, the mainstream media clickbaits too. All the fucking time. They choose the titles of their videos on YouTube according to what they think is going to bring in more views. Of course, now they don't have to do that. Now they just have YouTube slap it on the front page whether it's worth watching or not. These same sites, by the way, if you look at the view count on a lot of these big media sites, it's mysterious. They have millions of subscribers, and yet they fail to crack a six-figure threshold on virtually anything that they make. I can get 25, 30,000 people to watch my average video with, not even 200,000 subscribers. Something's a little bit fishy here. It doesn't quite make sense. Either they have very, very soft audiences, which would make sense, or somebody's bought some subscribers, I think. I think something's been a little bit manipulated here. It just seems to make sense to me. I don't think YouTube would do that. I think YouTube's more on the serving out the material end. That's where the manipulation happens. Is YouTube going to look into whether all those subscribers are real people? Because I notice once in a while, YouTube purges like the bots and the inactives and stuff and banned accounts from your subscriber rolls. Like that's happened to me over and over again. Like, you'll notice a couple hundred subscribers went missing. That's because some of the fake accounts are being deleted, by the way. It's not a form of censorship. It's just a way to keep the site cleaner. Clean-ish, I should say. Like spam accounts, they get removed because some people find that funny. Are you going to do that? Do you do that to the New York Times? Or to CNN or Fox or any of these other groups? They would have the most vested interest in trying to outcompete people by doing that sort of shoddy shit anyway. because they have the most overhead, they have the most debt, they have the most fiscal problems, and they have a dying old audience and high inefficiency, and their cable presence is slowly floundering. Their newsprint presence is generally floundering. So where are they turning? They're turning to YouTube and other online venues. Might want to have a look at that. Might want to, Google should just stab them in the back, expose them, say, yeah, they buy fake accounts and they do shoddy stuff, so we're kicking them all off. We're stripping them of their ability to even be on our platform. That includes their fucking pundits. You can, Jake Tapper can go away. Tucker Carlson can go away. Screw you, Glenn Beck. You're not having an account here anymore. Facebook should do the same. The big tech firms, if they got together and they kicked all the detritus off, the parasite legacy media class, it'd be so funny. That'd be great. All of us would be cheering. Pretty soon there'd be more people using these sites. They'd be way, way better. We don't need their kind of filth here. They're inefficient. They don't know what they're doing. Most of these people can barely send a tweet without embarrassing themselves. You want to talk about, oh, Trump put his foot in his mouth on Twitter. What do you think pundits do all the time? They're constantly having problems. It's like a freak show. So yeah, YouTube is explicitly demoting, like the independent content that I make is explicitly being demoted, not because YouTube is directly going to the content and saying, well, bad sticks, we're putting you down the list. No, they are simply elevating others above the list, thus bumping me down by default because I can't crack the top of the list. There have been a couple times when I was on trending on YouTube, both within, I think, like a few categories and on the main page. That happened once. I think that was right in the wake of Sargon messaging me, mentioning me, which is pretty funny. But no more. Like if you're an independent commentator, you'd have to go, head over heels. You'd have to plan for days in order to get a single video probably to trend it all. And even if it does, someone's going to bump it right off the list because they'll say, oh, we can't have this on front page. The advertisers will get angry. It's not user-friendly. Meanwhile, stuff that covers the same material is still on the front page. It's still just as add-on friendly by YouTube's TOS, its actual standards. It's just that YouTube decides not to apply those standards to all the channels fairly anymore. And that's bullshit. None of those people built YouTube. The Blaze was not an early YouTube arrival. Fox and CNN were not early YouTube arrivals. There were a handful of the pundit class and some, staffers and stuff had private accounts. They were treated the same as anybody else's. That's what made YouTube wonderful, Google. That's why a lot of people chose to use it. Wow, I can interact with, talk to this other... Twitter's going the same way. Early Twitter, well, it's basically a free-for-all. Now it's controlled Twitter. Certain Twitter users, their tweets automatically, they're going to jump to the top of a bunch of lists. Other people get a shadow ban, apparently. Well, that is not helpful. Facebook groups, Facebook posts that are put out there. Ads, everything else under the sun. They're prioritizing people who already made it like 20, 30 years ago. Why? Why? If they're so powerful, if they're so wonderful, why would they need to use social media? No, you should give additional support to the new independent class of commentators. We're the ones that are more interesting. That's why we're bringing in so many people with so little investment. There's a reason I can sit here and rant for 10, 15 minutes into a fucking webcam that cost me $65 into looking at a laptop. I can sit there and rant. I can get tens of thousands of people to watch it. Totally outflanking a lot of smaller news sites from the old guard. Anyway, a lot of those sites, they don't even have 10, 20,000 people in circulation. They don't even have it. A lot of those websites, they don't get even 1,000 views in a day. They're basically ghost towns. Nobody cares about them. It's a significant number of people watching this content, and I'm one of literally thousands of commentators on the same level, some far larger than myself. Can you imagine the sheer scope of the interest involved, the sheer number of hours of content watched on a daily basis? It must be monumental. Way, way more probably than all of those legacy media sites combined at this point. But yet we get no deference at all. They want to promote them so that they'll keep buying ads, basically. That's the problem. YouTube should get past ads and you should move to a system where everyone's expected to pony up 99 cents a year if they want to keep uploading. Make a tier to YouTube. If you're going to have a caste system on YouTube, why don't you make a caste system where people who are making the bulk of the content, driving the bulk of the interest, can pay $10 a year to continue to do that? Nobody is going to care. We're all making enough money at this point anyway if we're taking crowdfunding or even AdSense at this point to easily afford that. I would be more than willing to pay YouTube a small amount of money per month or per year to keep uploading unlimited amounts of content. Gladly. I wouldn't care I wouldn't care if you charged me $500 to upload this much material. I'd gladly pay it because I can make it very quickly. And as for people who want to upload less, you charge them less. If they don't want to upload it, don't charge them anything. They have a free account. Who cares? Give them like 10 gigs of storage anyway. Let them make the handful of videos that they're ever going to make. A lot of people won't make any. It'd be so much better than the ad-driven. The ad-driven internet's dying. It's not going to be ad-driven anymore. It's simply not. And people are getting too pissed off at advertisers. It's not going to work. 5-10 years from now, I would be very surprised if any of these large sites continue to be substantially reliant upon ad revenue. Because the companies using ads are pulling them back. They're claiming it's for moral reasons. We all know that's not true. It's not for moral reasons. It's for fiscal reasons, because ads don't work. You invest $1,000 in ads. You're not going to get $1,000 of sales probably back. It's probably not going to happen. I've run ad campaigns before. I've run ad campaigns for literature. The return is less than what you invest. The only main purpose of it is you flood things with ads for a short period of time. A bunch of people are looking at the material, they're seeing your name, they're seeing the content, everything else, and then that interest rises a little bit long term. And so then the sales pick up for a while. But all of these firms have already been flooding people with ads for years and years at a time. There's a reason. Have you ever noticed, even on cable, you're watching TV, you see some new ad for, some car insurance or a taco or something, and you see it for a while, and then you don't see, for several years, you don't see any ads by that company anymore. Why do you think that is? It's because they don't need them. They don't need targeted advertising, at least in your area. It's not necessary for them to continue serving that ad anymore. It's not necessary because they wouldn't be getting any return. The return is in, they made a jingle that went viral. A lot of people remember it, and they're still going to be humming it a year later. At least sporadically, it continues to drive sales up. They don't need another ad campaign for a year or two. The more powerful it is, the longer they can go without it. That's the fundamental principle of advertising that a lot of people here aren't understanding. If I put out an ad campaign online, it would be a long time before I would bother with another ad campaign. It'd be pointless. I've already saturated. The number of people who could possibly be interested in whatever the fuck I'm selling has already seen my fucking ad. What's the point? It'd be pointless. So YouTube's being wrong again. It's explicitly demoting my kind of content more than anybody else's. Tech, though, it overlaps with enough, so the tech is going to get hammered. Somebody like Cullen, Computing Forever. A lot of these people who primarily they cover like gaming, reviews, and tech and stuff. They kind of go into the political. They're not fans of censorship. They might cover a current event that has something to do with it. It overlaps with tech or something. Well, so are the legacy media sites. So the bigger the story, the more of them get hoisted up onto the front page, demoting everybody else by default. That's the point. It's the same thing the same example that I used in the past. Like if you're selling 2 loaves of bread, and they're the same cost, they're basically the same, and you promote one of them, you are demoting the other type of bread because there's a limited number of people interested in bread. More of them are now being driven to one over the other. You have demoted the other type of bread. You also probably haven't increased sales. For that bread company you have, not for yourself. What's the point? YouTube's not making itself friends here. It's not driving more interest to the site in terms of audience by promoting one group of channels over another. It's not accomplishing that. What's the point of bothering? They should stop this. It's pointless. It's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help the people that made YouTube big. And if enough of them get screwed over, YouTube's not going to be big anymore. It's going to die. I hope Google realizes that there is no such thing as a tech firm or anything else too big to fail. Look at Sears. Look at Walmart's profit margins at times. Look at MySpace. MySpace is the greatest example of all time. A lot of people don't even remember it existed. That's about all. Peace out.